Speaker, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I rise in this House for my inaugural address with humility to share my unique story in the hope that I don't go back to the future. I clearly remember the communist Soviet Union. I lived there until I was age 9. Those of us who come from the Eastern Bloc were afraid. Please do not dismiss us. I'll begin by asking a question. Speaker, how many bedrooms in your home? Do you have more bedrooms than people? Why? Because we have a housing crisis. Why do you need so many bedrooms? How many bedrooms is the precise question the Red Army asked my great-grandmother after the Bolsheviks barged into my family's home in St. Petersburg, Russia, in 1918. Turned out my family had too much house, so they settled in 2 more families. That was the hell that were communal apartments in Eastern Europe. And we already have a vacant house tax in Toronto. Some folks in Vancouver are talking about a vacant bedroom house, and we already ask how many bedrooms you have on the national census. So let me draw a scenario. An article in the Globe and Mail claimed that there is no version of reality where housing supply can meet the rising demand. No meeting demand. So imagine, after Prime Minister's Build Canada Homes fails, because you can't trust the government with your dry cleaning, what's going to happen when people have no place to live and the federal government declares housing a national emergency? We'll all have to do our part. Large homeowners should do their fair share. Why do you need all these extra bedrooms? Why not redistribute housing? Now, I'm not saying this will happen, but who knows anymore? My fear is this new phenomena we're seeing in Canada called collectivism. It's accelerating, and it's exactly the path that Venezuela and so many others took, slowly, step by step. Everything is the biggest crisis ever now. We have a new crisis every week. Problem is, at a time of crisis, collectivism, even when it's well-intentioned, is a step away from communism. And there are no limits to where collectivism won't go, because the bigger the crisis, the bigger the government's solution. The Liberals especially, they're determined to save us from everything. They will fit a square into a circle, even if they break the toy. And of course, mainstream media will applaud and tell you that it's working. All of a sudden, you don't recognize your country. You know what else? In the Soviet Union, you were not allowed to listen to foreign radio like the BBC or the Voice of America. We weren't allowed to read Western newspapers or books. You couldn't even pass around photos of supermarkets. So Soviets would not start asking, how come they got eggs in Europe, but we don't? That's why they called it the Iron Curtain. And now the Prime Minister talks about too much disinformation out there on US platforms. So what's he going to do? Is the Prime Minister going to censor Twitter? Is he going to put me behind the Iron Curtain again? Freedom of speech is the greatest right of them all, because through freedom of speech, we defend all other rights and all other people. But freedom of speech isn't just a right to utter speech, it's also the freedom to hear speech. So when the Prime Minister threatens my ability to read Twitter, I'm worried. Am I going back to the future again? Like the Beatles song, Back to the USSR? Friends, it doesn't matter how you voted. You don't want censorship in Canada. It's not up to the Heritage Minister, who calls himself a proud socialist, to decide what's true and what isn't true, and what is safe and what isn't safe. You see, the Liberals, like all radicals, they think they know what's good for you. That's the difference between Liberals and Conservatives. Liberals want to tell you what to do. Conservatives say, you do you. And in fact, communists use the phrase disinformation to come down on free speech. I say just have the decency to call it lies. They can accuse me of lying. I dare them to. The best way to combat lies is not censorship, but more information and better information. And throughout history, Those that impose censorship are always the bad guys, unless speech violates the criminal code. Let Canadians hear all opinion and make up their own minds. That is democracy. And you know what else the communists did very well? They lied. They lie about everything. My grade 1 gym teacher said, "You don't need herring on your bread." She said, "Bread and butter is good enough." She said, "Maybe they have herring in America, but that's because America didn't fight in World War II." What a terrible lie. Germany even lost World War II, but they have herring in Germany. Ironically, this Prime Minister also has difficulties getting his facts straight. He says one thing in English and another thing in French, one thing out west and another thing in Quebec. He had nothing to do with Brookfield's move to New York. He just signed the letter to the shareholders. And now the Prime Minister refuses to table a budget because he plans to rewrite the books. New books, everybody. He will override well-established public sector accounting principles. He'll take out capital dollars because they're not real dollars. We don't pay interest on them. We don't add them to the debt. Abracadabra, and boom, Canada's operational budget will balance itself. Speaker, I started out as a commercial and bankruptcy litigator. The first thing you ask when you enter a distressed company, show me the books. But when the books are hocus pocus, you bet there's malfeasance. You hear a company doing a big accounting revision, you dump the stock. Separating capital and operational expenditures never worked. It's been tried and failed. The Prime Minister should be honest about his government's failure. Fess up to the gazillion schmazillion dollar deficit. Do not cook Canada's books, because mark my words, it will undermine confidence in our country and it will bankrupt our nation. Please, do not cook Canada's books.